Captain Shubham Gupta, 9 Para Special Forces. Captain M.V. Pranjal, 63rd Battalion, Rashtriya Rifles. Havaldar Abdul Majid. Lance Naik Sanjay Bisht. Paratrooper Sachin Lor. Five braves of the Indian Army made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in Jammu and Kashmir, battling Pakistan terror. Is Rajouri, south of Pir Panjal, once again emerging as the terror hotbed? That's our top focus on India First. In the past 2 years, there has been a spike in terror strikes in this belt south of Pir Panjal. Take for instance, the 1st of January this year, 7 Hindus, including 2 children, were massacred by Pakistani terrorists. On the 5th of May, 5 commandos of 9 Para Special Forces were killed in action in an anti-terror operation again in this region. On the 20th of April, 5 more soldiers were killed in action in an ambush by terrorists, this time in the Mendhar region, again south of Pir Panjal. Let me now take you back to August 2022. 5 soldiers were killed in action in a terror strike that took place at the Alpha Gate in Rajouri. 1st of October 2021, 5 soldiers made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in the Surankot area. The terrorists at that time remained untraced. The army clearly believes that a terrorist's life in any area in Jammu and Kashmir should not cross 6 months on the outside. Then how was this Lashkar-e-Taiba leader, Qari Muhammad, operating for more than 1 year in and around the Rajouri region south of Pir Panjal? Was this a lapse of intelligence or a lapse in operations? I'm Gaurav Sawant. We will explore, because there is a very clear threat that this region south of Pir Panjal could see terror in winters, and then the terrorists could use this as a springboard to spread terror in the Kashmir Valley, South Kashmir, Central Kashmir and North Kashmir in 2024. Much more on that. Major success for the security forces in the Jammu-Poonch-Rajouri belt. A hardcore Pakistani terrorist was among 2 terrorists killed in a major anti-terror operation today. However, this success has come at an unaffordably high cost. 5 soldiers, including 3 from the 9 Para Special Forces, made the supreme sacrifice of their lives. These terrorists may be dead, but mopping up operations remain underway. But after losing this battle in Kashmir, is Pakistan now trying to revive terror in the Jammu-Poonch-Rajouri belt once again, and then use this region as a springboard for terror in Kashmir in 2024?
Captain Shubham Gupta, 9 Para Special Forces. Captain M.V. Pranjal, 63 Rashtriya Rifles. Havaldar Abdul Majid, 9 Para Special Forces. These are the names of the army bravehearts who India lost in yet another terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir. 2 young army commandos, both in their 20s, and 3 Jawans were killed in action in Pakistan-backed terror in Jammu and Kashmir, this time in the Rajouri sector. Captain Shubham Gupta, who donned the army uniform in 2018, had told his family that he'd be back in a while, moments before he made the supreme sacrifice.
पिछले 15 दिन से ही लगातार कह रहा था एक काम है वो करके आता हूँ, एक काम रह गया उसे करके आता हूँ. I feel proud. वो जो करना चाहता था उसने किया, सर्वोच्च बलिदान देकर.
पूरे परिवार की, बहुत बड़ा परिवार हमारा, तो परिवार की शान बान थे और सब मिलके जब वो आते थे 10-15 दिन की छुट्टियों के लिए, तो सबके लिए एक दिवाली होती थी, चाहे दिवाली ना हो.
Father of Havildar Abdul Majid recalled how he has always been keen on serving the nation, asserting that the family is proud of his ultimate sacrifice.
मेरे को बहुत फख्र है सर कि मेरे बच्चे ने शहीद हुआ इस देश के लिए, अपने मुल्क के लिए, अपनी ज़मीन के लिए, क्योंकि इसी ज़मीन से हम निकले और इसी में जाएंगे।
Two Pakistani terrorists, including a top Lashkar-e-Taiba commander, Qari, were killed in the encounter in Rajouri's Kalakot. After a fierce gun battle spanning 2 days, operations are still on. Qari was trained by Pakistan and was active in the Rajouri-Poonch area. A trained sniper and IED expert, he was sent to revive terrorism in J&K.
Encounter is still on, and we are reporting from ground zero here near the encounter spot, and behind me you can see that the CRPF Jawans are here. They have laid an outer cordon in this entire area of Kalakot. As per sources, there are 2 to 3 terrorists hiding in the forest belt of Rajouri. You just see the terrain. This entire stretch is surrounded by dense forests.
The hilly Rajouri-Poonch region south of the Pir Panjal mountains has seen a big terror spike in the last 1 year. From 7 civilians from the Hindu community killed on January 1st this year, to 5 Army Special Forces commandos killed in May this year, to now 4 army men killed in a single encounter. How long will Pakistan terror bleed India? And when will India settle this once and for all? With Sunil G. Bhatt in Rajouri, Jammu and Kashmir, Bureau Report, India Today.
5 braves of the Indian Army have been killed in action in the past 24 hours. 5 para-commandos were killed in action in May. 5 soldiers were killed in ambush on the road to Mendar in April. And this is an unaffordable cost when India battles Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror in Jammu and Kashmir. Which brings me to my question of the day. Is it time to hit Pakistan terror at home again? What's the latest situation on ground? I want to quickly cut across to India Today's Sunil G. Bhatt, joining us from this encounter spot. Also with me is Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Director General of Infantry. Sunil Ji, as of now, were there only 2 terrorists there? Were there more terrorists? Is the operation still underway? What more can you tell us?
Well, Gaurav, we were at the encounter spot and we saw that reinforcements were sent early this morning to the encounter spot. The reinforcements from the Indian Army, from Jammu and Kashmir Police, were sent to the encounter spot. But late in the evening, there was this information that came that 2 terrorists were successfully eliminated by the security forces. But unfortunately, we lost 1 more army personnel in this anti-terror operation. So in total, 5 of our brave army personnel have made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in this anti-terror operation. And Gaurav, I have been emphasizing on this fact since morning that if we go by the chronology of the terror incidents that have taken place in last 2 years in the south of Pir Panjal, we will just understand this fact that we have suffered heavy losses. Our security personnel have, been martyred in many of these terror attacks and in many of these encounters, and this definitely calls for a thorough review as far as these operations are concerned, SOPs are concerned, and if there are any lapses, the security establishment needs to, find out a solution for that. Because
stay with me for a moment, Sunil. We'll continue this conversation. General Kulkarni, Qari was a hardcore Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist. He was involved in multiple terror strikes in the area. But losing 5 soldiers to eliminate 1 or 2 terrorists. Sir, in your appreciation, and I'm not talking about just the encounter that's taken place today, there have been multiple encounters in this belt where we've lost 5 Special Forces commandos. Last time, 5 soldiers killed in an ambush in May. Do commanders need to relook tactics in this region?
Gaurav, at the very outset, extremely sad. There's no denying the fact. Very heartrending. One feels very, very bad about it. But let me also come to the point to say that the area is very, very forested, firstly. Secondly, the visibility is very low. thirdly, there are a whole lot of these, these bakrabals and dhoks that are existing all over. Then there's a lot of pressure. Of course, there's a mix of population from both sides. There are Muslims, there are Hindus, sizable number of Muslims, 70% of them. There are a lot of scheduled tribes over there, about 40% of them. You have Riyasi district, about 44% is forested. You've seen Rajouri, very, very forested. Visibility is poor. They take on a vantage point. Now, this Qari, who is a Pakistani national, yet another Pakistani national who's there, they're trained into operating from caves, they're trained into operating into ID, they're trained into as snipers, pushed in primarily, as you rightly said, south of Pir Panjal, both Rajouri, Punj, Riyasi, all of these districts, which now see sudden spike. You find out of the 47 odd people who have lost their lives, 15 of them of the security personnel lost in Rajouri itself. Out of the 121 that have lost in J&K, just about 27 in the entire J&K, 15 are in these just 3 districts, and maximum number of the security personnel that we have lost are in Rajouri district.
Yes.
Even in Riyasi district, we seem to have under control. Even in Punj, it's under control. But Rajouri, a sizable number we've lost, primarily because of the forested region. And once you get these kind of information, you know there it is. Whether what we now need to see is, earlier also somebody lured them, and there was a contact that took place. This time also that there is one nomad who was supposedly being beaten up, who refused to give them food. They were seen to be with somebody wanting to have food. Then they went there. So there were inputs coming to it, and inputs and all these areas generally, as the tradition goes in the Indian Army, people lead from the front. They are there. It is not that they ought to be in front, but they're all there. They're young officers taking them.
So you can be lured once, you can be lured twice. You need to change your tactics if you're lured again and again and again. And if Indian Army officers lead from the front, then they need to relook their strategy, perhaps send in more drones, use more technology. Why is there pressure? There is no pressure from the country. I hope there's no pressure from commanders for soldiers to finish operations fast. Wait it out. Let the terrorists starve to death.
Gaurav, definitely. There is no pressure. Absolutely. Now I can tell you with certainty, now having become a veteran, there are no pressures whatsoever. The desire to eliminate them. There are just 2 of them. This contact must have been there for last 3-4 days. They would have been in contact with them. Yes, if wished to, rather than once you know that there is someone, you use all technology, drone, whatever, but the weather doesn't permit sometimes. Sometimes there's so many other difficulties that are cropping up.
Wait it out.
Once these terrorists
starving
occupy
to death, time is on our side, our country, our people, unless commanders put unnecessary pressure on soldiers on ground.
Yeah, Gaurav, definitely. All these things would have been taken care of, starved them to death. Obviously, how much of logistics would they be having? 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, 21 days, maybe 1 month at the most. How much will they last? It's not that it can't be done. It can always be done. Starve them to death, ensure that the logistics is totally cut off. But at night and things of those kind, despite all the night vision devices that you may have to be able to track all of them, but once you occupy heights in these forested areas from where you can see, and people have to climb, it's not easy. So you're climbing up, and they are watching you from top, what's going on down below. And day, night, for days on and then the operations are on. And even this counter-terrorist operations that were launched primarily to flush out all these because to prevent infiltration. Like I understand the Army Commander also recently had said that there are about 200 of these people waiting in the launch pad to be wanting to get infiltrated into India. There's a lot of pressure. The pressure is of
kill them at the launch pads.
No pressure on anyone.
I mean, what can that terrorist country do that the terrorist country in your neighborhood is not doing already? If there are 200 terrorists in those launch pads, kill them in the launch pads.
Those attempts are being made. Those attempts are being made, Gaurav, to knock
What's
them
the point of a ceasefire which is killing our
itself.
people? Because I also want to understand from you, that this terrorist has been active in this area for the past 1 year is what inputs seem to indicate. Whatever happened to the army commanders and these are commanders at various levels, whether it's the CU or the brigade commander or the div commander, we were told all along that a shelf life of a terrorist is 3 months. On the outside, maximum 6 months. How was this terrorist alive for 1 year?
See, if you notice, for the last so many years, south of Pir Panjal, the activities have been low. But after the abrogation of Article 370, you suddenly find that probably to draw attention, everything is now moved towards Jammu, Rajouri, Poonch, Riyasi. These are the districts that have been targeted. And therefore, there has been counter-terrorist operations that are launched to ensure there's a... But the area is really very forested. It's very easy. I have operated in these areas. I know what it means. It's so very difficult. Thickly forested areas, visibility is extremely low. Weather conditions are bad. Sometimes even the fog, mist, you can't see nothing whatsoever there. Anyone who's occupying heights has an advantage of seeing what it is. Yes, it is. One can say, starve them, don't go around. But then once you have inputs of certain terrorists hiding in areas, and when you're surrounded in counter search operations, totally surrounded from all sides, the tendency is always to knock off. And once the firing starts, then there is no way. You're not going to break that contact, because once the firing has started, once the terrorist has opened fire on you and you surrounded him, now you have to eliminate him. You can't say, well, starve him or do anything like that, because it is very difficult, extremely difficult. I know it is very easy for us over here to say that, but over there for these youngsters who are in operations over there, it's very, very difficult.
Sir, for all of us, for you, for me, for the rest of our country, the lives of our soldiers far more precious than any Pakistani scum that comes into our country.
100%. 100%.
But 5 terrorists killed in an ambush in April, and that happened on the road. And these terrorists were filming it quite the way the Hamas terrorists were filming the terror attack in Israel. So these terrorists, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists were filming it in April. Again, we lost 5 Special Forces commandos in the month of May. Sir, with such an experienced chain of command, whether it's the brigade commanders, the div commanders, the corps commander, the army commander, clearly something needs to be done to ensure that these incidents don't keep happening every couple of months in the past 2 years, sir.
See, Gaurav, let's look at the flip side of it. The very fact that their contacts are taking place, the very fact that the people are aware of what's going on, unless you search and destroy them, how else? They will continue to be there. They'll continue to, harass the villagers over there. Almost over 90% of the population of Rajouri is rural population. It's connected to that Kalidhar, Kotidhar. It's on that old Mughal route coming there from Pakistan into India. So there are a lot of other things that are there. But believe you me, there is not one man, right from the army commander down to the company commander, the platoon commander, there would be all the life. See, saving one's own life and killing that of the militant is the most important thing. You see, overall, if you see it in the context of J&K, 121 people have lost their life. How many of the security force? About 27 security personnel, and over 83 of these terrorists have lost their lives this year alone. So there is, but yes, there are certain areas, especially what you just said, south of Pir Punjab, because of the wide valleys, the forested regions over there, visibility is very low, the heights are there, extremely difficult, plus the logistic support being provided by the villagers. That is something we really need to look into.
General, is there a mishmash that some soldiers, some troops had to be moved to the LAC, when tension escalated in the LAC with China, there were gaps. Those gaps in some instances were filled by CAPFs, the Central Armed Police Forces. So in some areas there's the army, in some areas there are CAPFs. And is that leading to lack of coordination or gaps that terrorists are exploiting?
See, a certain amount of, yes, a little bit of readjustments have taken place, but that would not affect it. Over here, this operation itself, you have the army, you have the special forces, you have the RR over there, you have the CRPF over there, you have the police over there. So there is quite synergy in the kind of operations being conducted. The very fact that inputs are coming, the very fact that the search and cordon operations are taking place, they are being cordoned off, there are days on which operations are going on. But yes, I do agree. There is no harm in relooking as to why such a thing has happened. That's not but yes, we must not lose life. But at the same time, we must also remember that whenever such coordinate search operations take place, when the young officers are leading from the front, they're all there. The contacts.
Sir, our soldiers are priceless. Just can't afford to lose our soldiers, especially to these Pakistani scum that come into our country. These terrorists, I mean, it's just, you're just unable to accept. But for joining me here on this India Today special, General, many thanks. I have breaking news that's coming in from West Asia, and I quickly want to cut across to that big story. There's a glimmer of hope for peace, or at least temporary truce in West Asia. The Gaza ceasefire is to begin tomorrow at 7:30 local time, tentatively around 11 India time. The first batch of hostages are to be released tentatively between 10:30 and 11 a.m. India time. 13 hostages, including children and their mothers, are being released in the first phase on day one of this 4-day truce. Israel's Prime Minister's office, Benjamin Netanyahu's office, has received the first list of hostages, 13 that will be released. For last-minute negotiations, the Mossad chief was in Qatar, and there were multiple engagements with interlocutors from the United States, Qatar, and Egypt. Israel will also be releasing 150 Palestinian convicted prisoners, women, criminals, and their children, again in phases. So every day, for every one Israeli, 3 Palestinians will be released, and after 4 days, if this arrangement holds, then for another day of ceasefire, 10 more Israelis will have to be released and 30 more Palestinians will have to be released. Much more on that story, but how do these modalities actually work out? A short while back, I spoke to Elon Levy, spokesperson in Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, on the modalities of the release and the road ahead. Let's listen in. Elon Levy, spokesperson in Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, joins me on this India Today special broadcast. Mr. Levy, what can you tell us? How soon will the hostages be released? There was some information that there is some delay.
We're hopeful that tomorrow we can begin to bring to an end the nightmare, the absolute nightmare that these hostages have been living through since they were abducted by Hamas from their beds nearly 50 days ago. There are over 30 children there. There are toddlers. There's a 10-month-old baby. And everyone here in Israel is sick with worry, thinking about what their condition is. Now, the plan that we have at the moment is an agreement to get 50 of them out in the immediate future in exchange for a 4-day pause. We're talking about women and children. At that point, Hamas will be able to get an additional 1-day pause in the fighting for every 10 additional hostages it releases. And we will continue to put pressure on Hamas until we get all 240 of our hostages out. Those are the 2 goals of this war that we are fighting after the October 7th massacre: to destroy the terror organization that burned, beheaded, and abducted people on October 7th, and to bring all of the hostages home and make sure no one is left behind.
What does the pause mean? Does the pause mean no firing, no shelling, no bombing, but will your drones still fly over South and Central Gaza?
If Hamas respects the terms of the agreement, which of course we will be vigilant against any infractions, then we will have a 4-day pause in the fighting. A 4-day pause that will allow the Israeli army to prepare for the fight ahead, because this is just a pause. It is not the end of the war. The war will continue. We wish we weren't in this situation, but we have to make sure that Hamas can never again hurt our people like it did on October 7th. And as soon as the hostages are out, we will continue to put pressure on Hamas to release the rest of the hostages and to destroy its terror infrastructure in the Gaza Strip.
Is there an apprehension that this 4-day pause could be used, as was being alleged by Israel, by the Hamas to regroup, rearm, and re-attack people in Israel?
Of course, we would prefer to put unrelenting pressure on Hamas and not stop in order to achieve our goal of destroying Hamas in response to the October 7th massacre. But Hamas is holding 240 of our people hostage. And so we've agreed to a temporary pause in order to get a large number of those hostages out. And we're going to use that time so that we can prepare for the days ahead. Hamas will certainly try, but we know that we're going to keep the upper hand, and this will continue. This war will end with the end of Hamas. We will not go back to a world in which Hamas can invade and abduct our babies anytime it chooses.
So, as of now, the agreement is 50 women and children will be released. But what about the soldiers? There is information that there are several Israeli soldiers, including some officers, who are in Hamas custody.
The first stage of the plan is an agreement to get 50 women and children out in exchange for a 4-day pause. Stage 2 of the plan is we hope to get another 50 out in exchange for another 1-day pause for each 10 hostages we get. And then we will continue putting military pressure on Hamas to release all of them.